Welcome to Leading in the Dark.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for having me on the show.
So you're the founder and managing partner of Duvari. So what is Duvari and what was your path that led you to found this company?
So Duvari, we're an IT staffing company. People in IT, they get calls from companies like this all the time. But the reason why I got into it, there's a lot of ways to get to success, and there's a lot of ways from businesses and growing and have fun as an entrepreneur. I just loved staffing because we get to see the effects of moving people in a better direction toward their purpose. So it's just an opportunity to really hear people, their careers, and make an impact.
And you were in staffing prior to founding this company, correct?
I was. Interesting story. I was supposed to take over as a leader at the company I was at. Great company. Got my hands on a Brian Tracy workbook. And as I was going to transition and help run their company, I got to the end, which was really scary and really fun, understanding what I wanted to really accomplish and the principles that I wanted to build. I wanted to go out and build it myself, and which takes a lot of other humans underneath, which brings a lot more fun.
So what is this you mentioned, Brian Tracy?
Yeah, it's so Brian Tracy, one of those leaders from the past. I got my hands on a workbook, and it's one of those things where one of the reasons I wanted to go in business is because I wanted to really look at holistically at people and our team members. And the first thing you have to do is pause. And so this Brian Tracy book was that epiphany where it really made me pause, took a few months to really work through what is it that I'm looking for? What are the things that I wanted to do to help the team I was in? But at the end, it was what do I want to build and why do I want to build it?
And so what specifically did you discover through that process that let you go build a company?
It was the fact that I'm in a position where I get to truly impact people's lives. So I believe revenue, which is very important in understanding financials and everything, is very important, but it's a byproduct. Too often we're looking at everything from a transactional mindset, and we're not looking at the true lives that are being impacted. And I'm just a very firm believer that if we serve people and we serve people first and have their best intentions in mind, the byproduct is higher revenue. And if we instill those principles in every aspect of our business and how we look to do anything from incentives to building out programs internally, it it all stems from the fact, how do we serve better?
So a lot of leaders will say these words, but in reality, what does it look like at your company as you're serving these employees that you're in charge of?
It's having fun. It's having fun because the things that I started off the company doing the things that impacted me. And I quickly realized what is important to me isn't important to everyone else, but is a good starting point. So I learned how to serve in different capacities through my life. And I understood those were the things that fulfilled me the most. So I want other people to see that. And the only way to do it is actually do it. And then you create muscle memory. So for our company, we work with Unbound organization, every one of our employees. So as we grow our company, we grow an external Duvari family. So we have kids in Colombia, Guatemala, just all over the world. And part of our kind of Duvari code is that you write letters. You create relationships with those that can't give you anything back in a tangible sense, except relationally. And I did that because it's great. We get to help people, but it's teaching the principle how to truly serve.
So what is this program? It's called Unbound.
Yeah, I've been with them for, gosh, I think over 15 years personally. And then the th- the thought process out of the gates was I want to teach people to see. I want people to understand and have perspective. And I want people to serve in a way in business. A lot of times, yeah, people will try to say they serve their customer, they're in our world, the candidate, but they're still keeping themselves through the process first and foremost. We're a commission-based industry, we're sales, and the thing that's tough is taking yourself out of that scenario, and so we have a pay it forward program internally. We do Unbound, so we have child sponsorships around the world. We do a lot of things differently, and out of the gates, the thing that I said, I'm like, "I'm gonna build the company that probably no other staffing firm is going to wanna buy." And I'm like, "That's usually not the first thing you're trying to accomplish and check that box." But it's from incentives, from how we teach our people through principle. Like, we do every Monday, gratitude and growth. And I want people to see each team member as a human that's going to have they're not gonna come in every day at 100% because we need to have empathy and understanding about one another. And the only way to do it is to actually have communication and understand their life. I want people when they're having hard times in their personal life, I want that communication because then I can actually understand what they're going through and I can lead them better. And if I don't know, psychology, just everything about how we're built is we go negative. We think the worst case more times than not. I want to take that off the table, but I want that as all leaders in our company. And I want to be an example for others. And that's one of the reasons when we started Duvari, I wanted to prove we can take an industry that can be looked at very transactional. And I want to show that serving first and pouring into the people, if you pour into your internal team, it's just going to spill out. For us, it's candidates, it's the clients and customers we work with. But it's more than that. If we serve our customers, that means we look at the shape, we listen first, we understand truly what these customers are wanting, and not just for us, we're IT, so we get a bunch of crazy acronyms and everything. And a lot of companies, they just match up acronyms. No, we want to understand where are you at in your process of your career. So are you going to be the right piece and shape out that team? Because at the end of the day, if that team is successful, that leader goes home without depression, anxiety, stress. And then guess what? The kids, when they go home, they come home to a mother, father that has less stress and they're more present. So it's I don't know. Sometimes I think people probably think I like rainbows and puppy dog tails and all, but which I do, but
You're communicating a lot of themes that you hear from Barry Waymiller, for example. Is that one of your sources of inspiration?
he's one of many. But Bob Chapman's awesome. Love his book. I've listened to him speak, but it's principle based. It's why are you coming to work? I can make as much money if I'm not getting true fulfillment from it. What's the real value of it? That's when I paused and I really took a look at my life. I want to lead for impact. Yes, sometimes I got to motivate people, but I just want to inspire. I want people to understand themselves. The better that I am at understanding the people that I work with, the better I can lead them. That means the better the self aware they are. That means they get to then take that and it compounds. They ask better questions to the people they work with. They respond instead of react in hard situations. When in our world, we get told no a whole lot. We work for very small percentages of success. So if we're not building our people in the right mindset, then it just becomes transactional. So we have to focus on those to have that consistency.
If you're willing to share, a lot of this is fascinating to me, and so I'm personally interested in kind of the next layer of detail, again, if you're willing to
Yeah.
share,
So
such
I'm an
as,
open book.
like, gratitude and growth. You mentioned that you do
Yes.
that on what, Mondays, or so what specifically does that look like?
So it's giving a question every week. And we come in and it's something I used to call it just gratitude Mondays. And one of my employees, she was like, Sean, some of the stuff you're talking about is really more growth oriented. I'm like, let's switch it to gratitude and growth because every morning we have something that is tailored in the gratitude. Because I believe if you want a team that sees each other in a positive light and works better together, you need people that have gratitude, even in hard times. Last few years, we've had a number of hard times, just market conditions and everything. So these questions are personal. And some people take a little time to get used to that kind of scenario where they're talking about just life and the people that impacted them. We went a couple weeks ago, we did one question that was amazing. We went in alphabetical order, and the person that comes next in the alphabet would they would talk about why they're grateful for them. And the things that came out of people's mouths, and then to see people tear up, because most people don't understand their impact. And we go around each day just running, sprinting most days, to the point that we don't even give people the time, and people don't understand their value. And if we don't take time to do that and understand each other, our team is not perfect. We make mistakes. We get frustrated. Families get frustrated. Teams get frustrated. It's not going to go away, but we approach it differently because we understand things that are going on the other side, and we understand the things that fulfill them, some of the things that where maybe they struggle. And if a team knows that, people can lift them up. People can come alongside and, hey, I actually I used to have my Series 6 and 63 and love investments. I can help you out with some of this stuff. If it's investments or it's something in the personal life. Recently, I've had some struggles and some personal, and it was amazing to see someone come up and was so thankful that I brought something up so that they could then bring something up, which would have never been discussed nor talked about. And it's because I started first. And it is, I know Brene Brown, the vulnerability, but there's truth.
I have often found that people like yourself, and I try to adopt a lot of these similar styles, that have found the path to a servant style leadership philosophy probably have had the opposite experience. They have had some experience that put them on this path. So what was your experience?
It is. We've all had different paths. And the nice part is you learn just as much, if not more, from the things that, you know, don't align well with you. I'm not saying everybody needs to believe what I believe, but I do, our core values and what we stand for, that is a big deal. So I do look for those. But with how I see life, yeah, I've had leaders that I was managing branches in finance, and we'd have a regional leader come in, and I didn't know you could hit exclamation point 25 times and consistently. I thought it was a time suck. You learn from different approaches because once again, if you believe in your leaders, you'll work for them. If your leaders are vulnerable and the leaders ask better questions, and if leaders actually care about the people underneath, you have a higher probability to get the best out of them. And that's what business is. It's trying to get people to be going toward a same mission, row in the same direction. And it's tough because some people don't have the right mentality. And sometimes even and I've had to have hard conversations where it didn't align. Not to say they weren't good people. It just wasn't aligned with what our purpose was. And if that's the case, I'm going to love them through that process by being transparent. And I've grown in that area. First, you can imagine I like people to like me. But you can't get to the end goal of really serving well if you're not having that radical candor, that transparency.
You talk about helping your teammates increase their own self-awareness, right? So that can be a really hard thing to do. There are career paths, like leadership career paths, where you are exposed to a lot more tools over time to help you develop self-awareness. And there are other career paths where you're probably not exposed to any of that stuff at all. So, how do you lead somebody that maybe hasn't been exposed to that to really help them on that self-awareness journey?
So our three pillars are listen, connect, guide. So it's listening first. And we put it first for a reason because if we can't come in and truly understand people, and it takes time and through experience and exposure and its consistency over the time tells a story. And that's a line my partner tells me all the time. And recently, we just found out our 6-year-old is autistic, and people aren't exposed to what they're not exposed to. So, me learning, I'm neurodivergent, I'm high ADHD, and I understand how I function, and I can empathize with others that have that. But now going to autism, I started diving in, learning how does the brain function? Why does these reactions and responses? Understanding it's not all stemming from a kid being defiant or in going to a school that's teaching kids with neurodivergent, you start learning people learn different. That you have to approach people differently if you want the best out of them and the best for them. And so as I'm learning through these instances, I've had this school like these are the same values we have to teach everyone. We have to customize how we approach people. And it is. I have someone on my team that has that's dyslexic. I got a couple high ADHD, so I can empathize. And then some that not. And then it's the systems and how we approach our day. I can tell you, I screwed up out of the gates. When I started Duvari, I'm like, I'm gonna build this amazing just training program. I'm gonna implement it, put it on. Everybody's gonna be amazing until I figured out it doesn't work like that. And we have to truly understand the people we're working with and how they function. They need choices. If you force them into one path, especially someone high ADHD, good luck. You're not going to get the best out of them, and they're not going to give you their best version. And that's our goal is I want them to understand how they fit in and how we impact one another. So we build all sorts of systems, incentives in our industry. I don't know what the dog eat dog, cat eat, I don't know. But we're building it to help one another. We put incentives internally, and staffing companies take this. Take a page out of our playbook. I'm an open book. We incentivize other like our recruiters are the biggest competition with one another. If one recruiter helps another, like with a candidate and shares them because we have parameters and policy in place and they help one another, they can say thank you by giving a portion of their commission. On top of it, Duvari, because that's what we look for. We look for people to help one another. So we're going to throw even more bonus, more potential commissions on top to match what they're going to do on top of the commissions we were already going to do. Why are we doing that? Because it just makes sense. Why would we not incentivize people working together instead of going against one another? Because when things like that happen, people can make bad decisions. We want to incentivize people to think through clearly on our mission, and we want them to help one another, and we'll pay you more for it. Because if we invest in that, the byproduct once again is we'll hire more people, the right people, and we'll do it in a way that we're building internal community that's going to affect people that are candidates and customers and we're not taking away opportunities that could be if it was a normal situation where maybe two recruiters are competing against one another.
I like this idea a lot of incentivizing helping your colleague, but how do you measure this practically? How do you quantify it?
It's a great question. So we measure, we do all the metrics, we measure everything that's important on relationship building. Like even our world, if we're doing things well and we're serving people at the highest capacity, we should be getting referrals. We track our referrals. We track our matching. We call it share to care program is our internal program. And basically if people share internally and within the we have candidate management policies is what we call it. We don't call it candidate ownership because I don't believe anybody owns another human. And and if within those policies they help someone else because they see a candidate and they want to do what's in best interest of the candidate, the company, and their other recruiter. We have a share to care and we track that. We want to see a lot of money going to those funds.
I want to go back to this story you started to describe where it sounded like at the beginning you tried to implement a process or an operating system and it didn't work. So tell me that story.
Out of the gates, my mission was I wanted to build holistic people. I wanted people to understand themselves better. I wanted I Michael Gerber, if you've ever read his book, and I used some of his software to ask questions, so I understood people coming in at a more deeper level, and I was very much so focused in that category. We were blessed out of the gates to have business. I had people that I've connected with over the years, and out of the gates, we were busy. And that's just really me and one person that had never been in my industry at all with a marketing background. And out of the gates, we had it. Over the next couple of years, I realized the things that I was so focused on was building holistic people, which is not a bad thing, but it's coupled with having data analytics, having the metrics in place, having personal dashboards so there's transparency and understanding so people can take ownership of what's important. So eventually, that epiphany of we're not really getting what I think is people's best. And I think there's better. So we started implementing more. We wanted more transparency, people, personal dashboards that really hit on the KPIs that really made the difference, which I should have known that out of the gates. But I was so focused on the other side that I wasn't looking at that having that transparency in the metrics. And what we eventually did was we looked at is we call it we're big believers in naming because if you can name something, then you can point to it. And we call it high performance hearts. And the reason why we call it that, that's how we build our program internally. We look for people that serve. So you got to have the heart. But if you're not high performing, that means you're either the industry's not right for you or that the mission and purpose of helping people and transitioning and doing all that we do to help people, it's not the right fit for you. So you need to be high performing because you should be motivated and you should be excited to do the things we do to impact the change that we can change. We're in an amazing position in staffing. And it's really looking at it though, you can't have one without the other. You need both sides. You need the grit and you also need the heart.
So you described changes and iterations through that whole story. So you started out one way, you're adjusting your KPIs, you're learning, you're adding more data, more feedback, all that type of stuff. Where are you learning you personally to do that? Do you have help from some outside coach or resource, or are you just amazing at digging into the detail and figuring all this out? How are you learning this?
It's a combination. I think the best leaders surround themselves with even better leaders. I wouldn't be I wouldn't have the mindset I have currently if it wasn't for a lot of amazing people that pour into me. But it takes the intentionality of stepping outside yourself, humbling yourself that you don't know everything, and getting in front of other people that you want to grow and become more and learn from. Because if I only did what I was exposed to and learned from previously, I would never I would never accomplish what I'm set out to accomplish. I got in staffing because it was a good industry, paid well, but as I got further deeper into it, I noticed like there is such an opportunity to serve people. And if we're not looking at it through that lens and we're not consistently surrounding ourselves with leaders that are in different parts of their seasons of careers and have that can tell me you might want to think of something different because they've had that roadblock in the past. We want to be efficient. We want to be effective. We want to learn from other people's mistakes so that we can be better. And the other side of it is as a leader, I want to be transparent. I want to tell others that there's a better way. Hey, I screw up doing XYZ. I'm when internally with our team, I'm the person that raises their hand the most when they screw up because I want people to understand and I want people to learn from people that make mistakes and I want them to be open. So getting into leaders, I've different groups, different players. I have a VBT for men's in my Bible study that phenomenal leaders that want to coach and train a certain way. I have had coaches, relation consulting. We work with them just to really map things out. We helped a company help digitalize an inventory system called Life of Value, and we got to be the guinea pigs and because it's looking at each of our lives in a holistic way, and there's different quadrants of but it's personal, professional, and everything in between. And being able to help people see their lives in these areas and understand there's things that I need to work on. We love being able to get to that clarity and working with leaders with that same mission. It's like, how do I take that and pull it into our industry? I love going to different industries and cherry picking. And at the end of the day, we put together the best we can and we keep adjusting.
To shift more perhaps to the business side, why the specialization in IT staffing?
I love the fact that I guess I got lucky out of the gates, to be honest. I had a individual that I played college ball with, and he was in IT staffing, and he picked me up for a college alum game. And back in the day, you printed out resumes. Everything wasn't digital. And I was looking at some of the resumes, and it's like a foreign language to me. Man, whatever you do, no, never. No way I'm going to do that. And a year later, I was working for the company. And the thing that I truly enjoy about IT, it's not like I've ever been an engineer. I've never You don't want me configuring your routers and switches and doing anything like that because it's not gonna be good. But the reason I love it is the fact there are such a high percentage of passionate people that love what they're doing. If they weren't doing it for a career, they'd probably have a Linux server in their basement and developing software on the side because that's their passion. But I get to talk to people that truly enjoy that, and it makes what we do a lot more fun.
What, if any, are some unique parts of recruiting and staffing in IT compared to other industries?
It is one that is different, I would say. So we work with all these different customers, and you can from administration to marketing to sales to IT is one that's just always moving. And it's tough because the people that are in IT, they very much it's a tight-knit community. If one It's crazy how connected people, just even from a St. Louis perspective. And it's the fact that people are so well connected and being able to connect those dots and help one another in the day, I enjoy the fact that it just comes together full circle and you get to learn consistently and it's always a moving target and companies need companies like us to find people quickly to really help shape their team. And it can be from software engineers to architects or even from a CIO perspective. And the people in the organization struggle until they find the right people. And it's just fun being able to shape teams and do it in a very intentional way.
So if I pretend to be one of your customers, which I could be, right? Because I'm an IT company. What onboarding new people is one of the hardest things that any of us do. What do you see folks on my side do well in onboarding these new people, and what do you see them not do well in onboarding new folks?
It's the strategic plan of consistency out of the gates. And we do. We work with a lot of companies and we see good onboarding leads to individuals that understand their path. People that don't know their path and they're not getting those check-ins. We've seen companies do buddy systems where they get designated a person within their company as their go-to person. At least it puts that pathway to someone that they can always turn to that's not their leader, their boss. It seems like the people that stay the longest and have the high retention are the ones that have the best onboarding practices. Having the consistency of check-ins, and it's not just the leader that they're reporting to. Companies are tough because everybody wants success. You look at HR, talent acquisition, they are on a mission, they've been exposed, they've maybe gone to school for a certain focus. You have IT leadership in our world, you have executive leadership, and each one of them have success, but a lot of times they don't perfectly align because they have their blinders on. It's that one piece. So the fun part is, especially with onboarding, is making sure there's transparency and communication. And for us, we hire people directly, so they're employees. We like to check in with them just to touch base. If there are consultants, we really want to make sure, "Hey, have you been communicating to your teams?" In fact, we want to make sure that they're fitting in, they're getting the communication, they're getting the feedback, because feedback rich people, they stay longer. Even if the feedback's not even great, it's better than nothing at all. Because once again, from a psychology perspective, if you're not hearing anything, you're questioning it. And if you're questioning it, you're probably going to start looking at the market again. Maybe I'm not doing well. Maybe I need to start looking again. And people lose people just not because anything's wrong. The fact is they're just not giving the feedback that's necessary.
When you're talking to a candidate and exploring their interest in looking at a new opportunity, what are candidates really looking for these days beyond the monetary?
Especially these days, they are looking at it from a holistic perspective. There's this little time frame called COVID, work from home. People have built their lives differently. I think there's different people in different seasons. There's things that are most important. I'm seeing people straight out of school that are looking more as a balance and more than I'm used to back when I came out of school. And it's unique from the fact and everyone has built their lives in a certain way and they're looking at life differently. So it's just not monetary. There are definitely people that are very money motivated, but I would say there's a definitely higher percentage of people looking at the family dynamics, understanding kids' schedules, understanding the flexibility. One of the things we see when a company has made a dramatic shift and not in stages, and they've maybe gone from full work from home capabilities to 100% back in the office, real quickly, you see a lot of people looking for new jobs. And it's not that people don't want to be in community with one another. It's usually the lack of communication on the why. And but people have built their lives differently. So they're going to take the necessary steps to find a place that helps their family dynamics in each custom unique way. And that's definitely more than we've seen in the past.
So if you talk to 10 candidates today, how many of them would list being able to work from home as their number one issue?
If not number one, it's usually one of the top. And it's not always just I want to work 100% work from home. It seems the highest probability is really more of a hybrid. We have people that candidates that want to work completely on site. They get fulfilled differently. That's the hardest part with putting blanket policies in place for companies is the fact what impacts one doesn't impact another. And there are people that want to go on site because they don't have the support community sense at home and they want to get out and meet people and have that relationship. But then you have others that they have that internally and they're like, I could work 5 days a week and kids' schedules and practices and XYZ. But it takes people believing in that company's mission so that they're working fully toward what they're doing and putting in the time and energy that they should. And but it really starts from the leadership from the top down if they're going to get their best out of each employee.
This is a really challenging topic, and it is for me personally. Think in particular about folks that are earlier in their career. It just seems we can do a real disservice to early career folks, leaving them at home. They're missing so much. Just the connection, communication, the rapid way in which you can solve things as opposed to sending some Teams message that might get answered an hour from now. It's a real tricky balance. How do you think about those things?
I believe you're right. The human we learn so much from the things that don't come out of a training program. It's not always by the book. It's overhearing conversations. It's being present when something happens and something goes sideways and actually being a part of something that wouldn't have been maybe put in your lap. But you could get to overhear it. You get to partake and you get to ask questions. There are times that if it's 100% work from home, it's a guarantee you're going to miss out on those opportunities. And for us, how we're building our team, we lead with trust to get trust is our biggest belief. If you're not doing the things to be successful, it's a different thing. It's not just work from home. But I do like to see our people and we do a hybrid type situation, but we customize it depending on each person. And I wish I could tell you I have the silver bullet answer that answers, but it's every industry. Every company, we do things differently. The type of communication, how we function together, how we communicate, there's no blanket statement. So it's looking at each company through their own lens, understanding what is the amount of communication necessary so that you can fulfill the highest probability and the most highest percentage of people and provide excellent work and execute on the things you need to do. Because at the end of the day, businesses are there. We have to have revenue. We have to be able to be successful so that we can provide for all these families. So there's that balance, but I think it's stepping back from it. We a lot of times get used to doing things the way we've done things in the past. And the best thing is stepping back and why do we think this? It's good to challenge yourself and it's good to adapt. But it's also good to make sure that you're putting good policies in place that are well thought out and not changing all the time either.
So you contributed recently to a book on entrepreneurship and grit. And I think the chapter that you wrote is Strength Through Surrender, where I ended, strength began. And it sounded like that was a fairly personal contribution for you. Could you share something about that?
Yeah, I can tell going through the process, just thinking through, and like you're an entrepreneur too, there's it's not easy. It's good to surround yourself with others. You need to be in community, but things impact you that are outside of the scope of work. When I decided, and I had several people that played a role in my life to get me to the point that I stepped out to start a company and to step away from the easy button at that point. And I didn't know I was going to go through a, had a 17-year marriage and go through a divorce, not see my kids but 50% of the time. The original person that was a good friend of mine, an entrepreneur, very successful, I had a great business, would, because of some certain family dynamics, and wouldn't be able to partner. And the first employee that I had that I was going to start the company with got news that her sister was sick. And just a couple months prior to starting, it just it got to the point I'm like, nothing was what I thought it was. So you go into this with the best intentions and this map and game plan and strategy, and then life deals you a little bit differently. And the book, it was most people think of grit as this like superhuman, these people that just go into burning buildings and they just do it and don't think twice. Grit isn't about just your own strength. You, I mentioned a couple times, the community, your relationships, the people that your family. And in my case, and those are some of the areas that I was really struggling. And to get to the point of starting the business and realizing all these things, I finally got to the end where I guess if you read the book, you'll find the exact details, but it was a moment of clarity. And I knew it wasn't my strength that I could keep on moving forward. I had to rely on a higher power. And it was the surrendering to that because we put so much pressure on ourselves as leaders because we're mission driven. We put ourselves in these situations for a reason. But when it comes down to some of the hardest things that hit you, and especially when they compound in a short period of time, my goodness, it's real. And you still have to show up for others too. So yeah, there's grit, but it's coming to for me, it was coming to end. It wasn't about me. I had to rely on God.
Shaun, I think that's an incredibly personal way to summarize a lot of the things that you've said. I can see how you got on the path that you did and have developed into this really powerful, I keep using the word servant style leadership. So I appreciate the vulnerability that you shared with me. It's a really interesting story. So congratulations on getting through that and all your success.
I appreciate it, Nick, and I appreciate you inviting me.
Good. It was nice talking with you, Shaun.
Absolutely.